You read the title. Before jumping to my throat, just hear me out. In order for a motorcycle to become an icon, a good, proper adventure bike, it needs to tick a couple boxes. There are things that can't be fixed with mods. The core and soul of a machine. Things manufacturers have to get right from the get-go. So, about this 450. You fire up the engine and the growling noise can be heard from its exhaust. It's a small twin that learned to bark from its bigger brothers. But noise without essence is pointless. This unit delivers a linear, smooth power band. It never surprises you, good or bad. Torque-wise, it's just the right amount to allow an experienced rider to power slide the rear without needlessly burning tires whenever glancing at the throttle. An engine that, when stretched to its lower limits, keeps chugging away. It lugs like a champion in an eternal search for low RPM traction. And it does all that without vibrating its bolts off. I'll be honest, I was impressed. Sure, it won't raise the hair on your back, but on the dirt, you simply don't need more. It's just the right amount, and it has the right character to allow you to perfectly modulate its output. It's a peach, and that's impressive. Because this 450 engine is not copied from anyone. It's not made in partnership with other manufacturers. It's CFMOTO's own in-house design. And for one of their first attempts at designing an engine, damn did they get it right. They've been using the same unit in other street-oriented models. Honestly, it's one of the best aspects of this motorcycle. Okay, it's not perfect. The fueling, even after updates, can feel a little snatchy when coming back on throttle. While riding dirt trails, this didn't bother me at all. In fact, it felt very responsive, direct. But when street cruising, I'll admit it, at times the snatchiness can be a little annoying. That being said, I don't think it should take anything away from it. From an engine point of view, the 450MT is a great motorcycle. First item on the checklist, ticked. We go to the second crucial aspect, item that manufacturers have to get right. The chassis. Ultimately, you can't modify this. We ride what we get. In the CF's case, the best way I would describe this is take a midweight adventure bike and scale it down by 20%. That's how this feels. Part of the lightness felt while riding comes from its size shrinkage. But it's a bike that never forgot its purpose. It's still, clear as day, a full-blown adventure bike. Now, that does come with downsides. For one, an aggressive rider might not appreciate how scooped in you feel. You're sinking down into the motorcycle instead of sliding on top, and that makes moving around a little clunky. At least in stock form, that is. But you forget about it quickly, as standing up on the pegs in attack position gives way to ergonomics that are close to perfect. The midsection is easy to grab with your knees, and everything feels in the right place. This normality makes the motorcycle handle really well, inspiring a feeling of lightweight. It's a story that can't be told by scales. Whenever you shrink a full-size motorcycle, you run into the risk of compromising its stability. But somehow, CFMOTO managed to keep that, especially when tackling paved roads and carving the canyons. It learned its manners from its bigger brothers. It also took some of their quirks, as the front end looks wider than it should be. I want to be clear, it doesn't affect the riding. You do get used to it, but it could have been a little narrower. Overall, I can't really fault the chassis and ergonomics. They are pretty spot on, especially for someone my size. Tall people might disagree, but my genetics don't really allow me to form an opinion on that. Another box successfully ticked. Finally, all iconic adventure bikes have one thing in common. Think Tenere 700, KLR 650, and that's reliability. But I don't think that word describes what I mean. A better word would be dependability. I want to know that whenever I push that start button, the bike always roars into life, without any drama. Here, this engine has been on the market for roughly 4 years, without any glaring issues reported so far. I can also tell you I rode another example that finished for Maniacs and has had 4,000 kilometers of nothing but abuse, and it never skipped a beat. In fact, talking to Romaniac's mechanics, the bikes were as sturdy as they got. None of them had any crucial issues during the 4 days of carnage.
I know this is all anecdotal. Realistically, I can't give you a really long-term assessment. I can only say it's a bike I would trust no matter the conditions. The last important checkbox was ticked.
Going back to the title, why would I say it's not a proper adventure bike? Now, a lot of the shots in this video wouldn't be possible without today's sponsor, and that is Insta360, and more precisely their Ace Pro 2. This thing is amazing. It has a big sensor, amazing footage at nighttime. It can shoot out of 8K in 30 FPS or 4K 60 with HDR, and you can even shoot log. It also has some really convenient features like a flip out LCD in the back, so you can perfectly frame yourself when you're shooting yourself with the camera. There's multiple perspective modes. You can get a more realistic look, but then you can also look a more dramatic look, right, when things fly past you. I shot with it all day for this video, and I think I'm at like 60% still, so that's great. Putting it on this mount and taking it off, that's a quick release mount, so you can have it on your chin or something and then quickly take it off to review footage or film someone else. So far for me, this has been super reliable. It has fast charging, so even if you run out of battery, you can easily just juice it back up. This is an amazing part of the toolkit. Check it out at the link down in the description. You can get some good deals over there. Thanks to Insta360, and back to the video. This might sound like a bold statement. There are a few motorcycles that are born into this world and manage to transcend their condition. Bikes that nail the essentials, that capture a unique something in us, that makes dirt riders fall in love. Think Tenere or KLR. Bikes that, on top of what I mentioned, come in at an affordable price. That's changed the industry. Wheels, brakes, suspension, those can be fixed. But the soul of the bike, its engine and chassis, cannot.
Throughout history, a handful of motorcycles managed to become more than just adventure tools. They became platforms, standards that any new motorcycles have to compare to. And the bold thing I was going to say,
I genuinely think the CFMOTO might just be one of those motorcycles. A machine to join an exclusive club of iconic bikes. Not just a proper adventure bike. It's a platform that gathered a huge amount of community support. From aftermarket levers to fancy suspension setups, rally towers, any luggage mounting options you could dream of. From shoddy copycat components all the way to the top of the line.
Anything your heart desires for the CFMOTO, it's already out there. Backed by a community of enthusiastic people, men and women that truly fell in love with the motorcycle.
But more importantly, with what it enabled them to do. And this right here is why I hold this 450 to such high regard. Where I live, you can get a new example for just 6,000 euros, with low mileage second-hand options running just 4,500. This might sound pretentious, but at that point, it's hard to justify not owning one. Look, for those of us who own multiple dirt-oriented machines, this might not matter. But where the CF changed the game, it got street riders to have a taste of off-roading and adventure. It took canyon warriors to places where no stretch of asphalt will ever reach.
This is such a cool bike, man.
Because at that price, you can afford to simply try it. It's the ultimate gateway drug.
In fact, that's the story of this particular 450 that I got to ride. I can't think of many other machines that had such an impact on the off-road community, that brought over so many riders. That's a contribution not many motorcycles can brag about.
When building a bike that targets new entrants to the sport, you run into a bit of a risk. Manufacturers tend to cater so much to the beginners that they start compromising. That's why for the longest time, these lightweight adventure bikes were glorified street machines. The crossovers of the motorcycling industry. And for one, the 450MT was a great entry platform. But it was an even greater bike in the hands of someone more experienced. That's the thing. It doesn't hold you back from properly ripping it for the woods. It doesn't try to kill you for going over 50 kilometers an hour. I would say, maybe for the first time, it's a small adventure bike that manages to impress riders, regardless of level.
One of my favorite things about a CFMOTO is the clutch. and particularly how light it is and how easily you can just use one finger on the lever. So in order to show this, we're gonna mount the Ace Pro 2 on the handlebar and give you a better perspective.
It's the lightest clutch I've ever felt. In fact, at times, maybe it's too light.
CFMOTO also fought long and hard of the gearing. The smoothness on the engine allowed them to gear it lower, so the bike crawls beautifully at lower speeds.
When off-roading, gear spacing is pretty much perfect. Now, that does mean the bike sits way up in the revs at highway speeds. But other than noise, it doesn't bother you much.
It's a compromise I am willing to accept. Speaking of compromises, when targeting such low price point, you have to make them. You simply can't have everything.
And here, I honestly think the Chinese manufacturer found a perfect balance of features. Everything you need, nothing you don't. The menu system is simple, easy to understand. Off-road mode is easily accessible by holding down one button, even when the bike is moving. Okay, you don't get fancy things like CarPlay, but the 2 USB ports situated on the tower make powering a phone easy. It's not fancy, it just works. Those ports are hidden by an adjustable windscreen, with adjustability trickling down to the levers too. Okay, you don't get cruise control or a quick shifter, but that gearbox allows for easy and precise clutchless shifts, up or down. If I were to describe it using one term, it would have to be common sense.
Finally, we get to the one aspect that surprised me the most. It's an aspect that historically, every budget bike had suffered from. Think CRF 300, think Tenere 700 or KLR 650. With no exception, all of these lower budget motorcycles featured suspension that I would call, let's be nice and say, underwhelming. It's an obvious place to skimp on.
So imagine my surprise when I swung a leg over and realized budget bikes don't have to come with undersprung, wallowy, sketchy setups.
I really want to show you how stable the CFMOTO feels at speed, especially for a budget bike. Come with me, I'll put you on the chin with the Insta360 Ace Pro 2 and just see how stable this bike really is.
If putting around, you might not appreciate the perceived lack of comfort from the standard adjustable KYBs. I get that. But as soon as you start going quicker, as you push the bike more, you realize the amount of confidence these forks and shock give you. It feels stable, safe. It's not a bike that wants to throw you off when hitting the wrong bump. The faster you go, the better it feels. Up to a point, of course. I never expected such level of confidence from a budget motorcycle. The CFMOTO showed me that it can be done, and even without a steering damper. Okay, one would be nice, but most people won't need it.
Look, I realize it might sound like a paid gig, like CFMOTO stashed a fat stack of cash down my pockets. I've said a lot of good things, and I meant it. Personally, I really think it's that good.
But nothing's perfect. Take that same suspension. Stock, it only comes in with 200 mils of travel. It doesn't bottom out easily, I'll give it that, but it makes for a less than impressive ground clearance. The tougher the trail, the more your bashplate will smash on rocks and logs. That's the price you have to pay for its low seat height and approachability. Also, those J-John brakes, they're a Brembo subsidiary, they work fine, but they could be better. Workable for sure, just not great. On top of it, this motorcycle needs crash bars from the get-go. The wide front end will easily smash into rocks and lose a bunch of important components without them. There's no protection built into its design. Most of these bikes come with a low fender, which, especially for a motorcycle that isn't designed to tame the Autobahn, I would have rather had a high variant. Talking about plastics, I appreciate them including a stock set of handguards, but realistically, the only thing they protect against is wind. Obviously, there are downsides.
But if I'm honest, I'm just nitpicking at this point. Sure, it could be lighter, it could be more powerful, ifs, buts, and maybes. But you have to remember what this motorcycle really is, what it represents, and what it did for the adventure market.
If you were caught browsing the forums just a few years ago, you'd see many people begging manufacturers to release a proper off-road capable twin-cylinder light adventure bike. And for the longest time, these requests were left unseen by the big manufacturers. They were afraid that putting out such a machine would cannibalize sales of their higher-end, more expensive offerings.
And you know what? Yeah, they were right. It would have. Sure, Honda has their 500, but that's far from what I would call an off-roader. BMW and Aprilia both showcased concepts, yet nothing you can buy today.
They've been reluctant. What this hesitation did was, it allowed CFMOTO to swoop in and wipe the floor with everybody else. They created a new market, gave people what they really wanted. A bike with, really, not many compromises. At launch, waitlists spanned over months. Everybody who hoped for KTM to release a small twin could simply buy the CFMOTO. And this indecision put the big manufacturers in a precarious situation. They were afraid of robbing their own big bike sales.
I get that. But I would argue the 450MT put them into an even worse position. If the Chinese had come out with a low budget but cheap feeling machine, the other big manufacturers could come in at a higher price.
They could offer more performance, better quality, things that would justify the costs and higher margins. But by building such a robust platform, CFMOTO has forced their hands. You see, if KTM or BMW want to capture this market and charge more, they can't just put out a compromised decent bike. They have to release an amazing one, because topping the CF ain't going to be easy.
For us consumers, it's a double win. For one, we can buy this great motorcycle now. And I think that whatever competition will come will have to be even better.
This is by far the most exciting segment of the market. And I get why.
And one more thing, if you liked the action shots you've seen in this video so far, they were all taken with the Insta360 Ace Pro 2. Make sure to check it out if you're interested. The link is down in the description and in the pinned comment.
There was an old perception. These lower CC motorcycles used to be nothing more than a stepping stone to the bigger, more advanced machines. Because with those big bikes came good chassis, suspension and capabilities.
But with the 450MT, I don't think that's the case anymore. If I wanted an ADV for shorter trips that's extremely capable off-road, I might not want something bigger, regardless of price and power.
Maybe, with time, the CF won't be remembered as just another stepping stone. It will be the stone that you never have to step off. A proper adventure bike.